Are these the next revolution in dungeon crafting? Let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Black Magic Craft. Not that long ago, I did a video about the textured rolling pins from greenstuffworld.com. These were pins that were designed to be used to sculpt miniature bases and give some texture to polymer clay. But through some experimenting, I realized that they worked really well on my material of choice, XPS foam. And after that video came out, these textured rolling pins kind of blew up in the dungeon crafting community. And I think greenstuffworld.com noticed. I say this because a few months after that video came out, they developed a tool that was specifically geared towards dungeon tile building. Previously, all of their products and tools were sort of geared towards wargamers, but now all of a sudden, they've released the Dungeon Plunger Cutter. I can't help but think that the development of this dungeon tile cutter product was in some way influenced by our corner of the community all of a sudden using their tools for dungeon tiles, which I'm guessing is why they were keen to send me these to test out. Now, what are these Dungeon Plunger Cutters? They are these nifty little, almost like cookie cutter type things that are designed to be used in polymer clay, things like Fimor or Sculpey. Roll some out in a thin layer, stab it like a cookie cutter, and use the plunger to press in a texture, and then bake that clay, and you have yourself a little dungeon tile that you can glue to a board and use for your terrain purposes. The set comes with 6 plungers. There's 3 different stamps. One is sort of a square brickwork, one is a cobblestone, and one is a flat, just blank square. Here's where it gets interesting. Each one of those patterns has 2 sizes. You'll get one that's a 1-inch square and one that is 1.25 inches square. And I think this means they've been paying attention to not only my videos, but also Wylocks. Some of you, I'm sure, will realize that 1.25 inch square tile is perfect to use for Wylocks style dungeon tiles. And I think it's no coincidence that these come in both sizes. And if it is a coincidence, it's a happy one. Today, I tested out these plungers using some Super Sculpey. I rolled some out, made a couple of each pattern, put them in the oven. It doesn't take that long, it's like 15 minutes in the oven. Once they came out, I was left with some pretty nice looking thin square tiles. I cleaned up the edges a little bit with an X-Acto knife, and then I just glued them to a piece of chipboard. After a quick paint job, I was left with a pretty great looking little dungeon tile. The plungers were very easy to use and they had really nice looking results, but I'd like to give my first impression pros and cons of the tool itself and its application. The main thing I like about this tool and what it creates is that it allows you to make incredibly thin dungeon tiles. Very, very thin, but it also has a really nice amount of weight to it, and it's very solid and very durable. It's also got a really detailed texture. I think that a tile like this would be ideal for people who have issues with storage or who travel. You could fit a lot more of these tiles into a box or on a shelf than my usual XPS foam ones. Another nice thing is that because this type of tile creation involves no styrofoam, no XPS, no foam core, you can spray paint it, which will help speed up your build process a bit. The material, the Sculpey or polymer clay, Fimo, whatever you want to use, also won't need something like the Mod Podge to make it more durable. This is going to be about as strong as you could possibly want for a dungeon tile just with the raw material itself. This is also a pretty good option for people who cannot get their hands on XPS foam, which I know can be a challenge for people in certain places. I'm not sure, but I think that Polymer Clay is a pretty universal product. I think Fimor and Sculpey kind of dominates the crafting market, so wherever you are, if you have some sort of hobby or craft store, you can probably get your hands on a material that will work with these punches. Now for the things I don't like. One, the plungers are useless on XPS foam. I checked on XPS foam if you could quickly punch in a little textured pattern, because if so, it'd be great to make a quick gridded square, but they don't work for that. They are not sharp enough or hard enough or whatever. They don't really work on XPS foam, and I wouldn't bother getting them if that's the intended use you have for them. Don't bother. The other downside is that, as far as I'm concerned, Fimor and Sculpey are possibly a little too expensive for some crafters. Definitely in terms of number of tiles that you can make, XPS foam, for example, is going to be cheaper. Cardboard is going to be cheaper. Fimor and Sculpey is a little bit more expensive. It's still not that bad because for 1 pound of Fimor, you can make a lot of tiles. So if you buy one of those packs with a coupon, it is still fairly cost effective, but definitely not as frugal as XPS foam. I had the idea to try out the plungers with some really cheap air dry clay from the dollar store. Unfortunately, I found that the clay, the kind of natural earthy air dry clay, did not work well with the plungers. It got stuck in it. It was just impossible to cut the pattern tiles and pull them out and keep them in one piece. The clay was just too sticky, even when I tried working with water and different things, and it was kind of a mess and a bit of a failure. That being said, I have a feeling that a higher quality air dry clay, something like DAS modeling clay, may actually work and be a little bit more affordable than Fimor or Sculpey, and would skip the step of baking in the oven. But I haven't had a chance to test that out yet, so I don't want to say it would work for sure. Overall, I don't think that this tool and this style tile is going to be a replacement for my type of foam dungeon tiles, because I think what you are left with is two very different types of tiles. What I think these would be exceptionally good for is if you have decided to build a set of Wylock style tiles, because in his build, he essentially makes a square of cardboard and uses chipboard cut up in layers to glue down as the individual squares. And using these plungers and some polymer clay would allow you to do his build, but in a more high-end, fancier style. And because they were smart enough to manufacture these with an 1.25 inch plunger size included, it is made perfectly for Wylock's excellent form factor system. I've been thinking about making a set of his tiles for a while and how they could integrate with my style of crafting, and never really got around to it. I think now with these plungers and the clay, that's how I'm gonna go about building my set of Wylock style tiles. I really like these. I think that they are a simple and nifty little tool, and they create a really nice result, but I don't think they are as epic, game-changing in style as something like the textured rolling pins, because those rolling pins were exceptionally good because they made building terrain fast. You could take one of those rolling pins, roll it out on some foam, and instantly have a textured wall or floor pattern, and it allowed people like me to do speed builds. These aren't gonna do that. These are not a tool that's gonna speed up your dungeon building. These are a tool that will allow you to make a certain type of tile really well, namely a thin, hard, durable tile with no warpage. This is not a tool to speed up efficiency. This is a tool to give you a very unique and specific product result. These are not a tool that are going to be universally useful to all dungeon crafters. But for those of you out there who would make use of something like this, it's going to be a phenomenal addition to your arsenal. The price of these is really reasonable as far as I'm concerned. For a set of 6 of these plungers, They are like 12 euro. Currently on the website, they are listed as 10% off, and Green Stuff World has been nice enough to set Blackmagic Craft up with a unique promo code that you can use. The info for that code is in the description of this video. So if you act now, you can combine my code with their plunger sale and get these for 15% off, which works out to be about 10 euros or about 12 or 12.50 USD, which is pretty darn reasonable. If you want to pick up a set of these for yourself, head on over to greenstuffworld.com. Link to the product is in the description. Make use of that Blackmagic Craft promo code. If you want to pick up any other tools or supplies to achieve this build, like some Fimor, some chipboard, whatever, head on over to blackmagiccraft.ca. There you will find my essential equipment store where I link to all of the tools that I use regularly and recommend that you can buy on Amazon, and in the process help the channel out by giving me a small commission on those sales. These videos would not be made if it were not for the support of people on Patreon. The generosity of supporters on Patreon are the #1 reason these videos come out every single Friday, and I thank every single one of you Patreon supporters for that help and generosity. If you want to help out and join the cause, head on over to my Patreon. There you can join the Blackmagic Craft Fellowship and join a group of great fellow crafters, get some direct help from me on your builds, and in the process, help fund these videos that I do for the community. If you've tried these plungers for yourself already, I would love to hear how you've found them. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts on the product. And until next week, guys, cheers and happy crafting.